In a competitive world, average won't cut it. The Success Launch Point shows you how to stand out, deliver massive value, and rise above the crowd. With on-demand courses, expert coaching, and a community focused on growth, you'll accelerate your career and your paycheck. It's time to level up. Check out modernobserver.com/launchpoint.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. As always, a very eventful week. We start things off with last Saturday's No Kings demonstrations, I guess you could call them. And Dr. Lopkin, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, prior to the protests, documentation had come out proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that most of the financing was coming from George Soros's operations. Big surprise there. After the protests, if you took a good look, it really seemed that the rest of it was sponsored by Geritol.
On a good day, it goes back into the whole thing with, what's his name, Neil Young, all these retreads, even Springsteen's in that category. Sometimes, people just never grow up. I can understand the rock stars because you really do never grow up. You're Mick Jagger and you're still jumping around at 80. But these other people, I don't know, maybe they never got jobs, or maybe it is related to Springsteen and his song Glory Days. Trying to bring back Woodstock and Love-Ins, and God, the thought of a Love-In with those guys is kind of chilling. But yes, you are correct. I'll ask you, why? Why, oh, why? There's got to be a reason.
With the older generation,
hold on before you go into that, is usually the old adage is people start as liberal, like I was in college, and it was all groovy and all that kind of stuff. And as you get older and actually pay bills, you become more conservative. So this is counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is counterintuitive. I think you've got basically two different groups that showed up for, well, technically three, that showed up for the No Kings protests. You had the geriatric 60s hippie set. And I think what you said about Glory Days factors into it. I think these people are romanticizing the protest movement, going, when we were young in the 60s, we can still make a difference, except they've stopped paying attention to what they're protesting about. The second group, and there have been one video in particular went viral over social media. Young men and women were asked by an interviewer how they felt about the Gaza ceasefire. And the woman's response was, well, I like protesting. So she didn't care about what was actually going on. She just liked the act of protesting. So the interviewer asked her, well, why haven't you protested about the treatment of Christians in Ghana? And the guy with her said, well, how much are they paying?
Yeah, I think that is funny and troubling. I still don't understand how Soros and his operatives are still allowed to function. How does deportation sound? But that's another issue. I do think it's very interesting, in my humble little opinion, the similarities between aging rock stars trying to live their glory days and these geriatrics also doing the same. They're one and the same. You're reflecting back. I mean, and also the whole subject that you bring up, subject matter, that they don't know what they're protesting. I don't know if you went back to 1968 or whatever. I don't know, might have just been the cool thing to do. I'm not sure. I wasn't there, but I
It,
would assume
it's
some of them
possible,
did
but
know.
I mean, it's possible that they didn't know back then either, but this is not the first time this has happened. Go back to the Occupy Wall Street movements in the early years of the Obama administration. Basically, they were chanting, well, what do we want? We don't know.
Yeah, but those were young people. I mean, it was very interesting to me. Again, you think that you get older, you get more assured in your own ways, and basically you're trying to live your own life and enjoy your final years. How do you like that? And to be going out there and making absolute asses of yourself is beyond ridiculous. Like, I can understand making an ass of yourself 18, 22, smoke a couple joints, go for it. But you're 70, 60 something years old, and you look like, and you got a friggin' bunny costume. You look like a moron. And
Yeah,
the only good thing I'd say a redeeming quality is, unlike the Gaza whack jobs, at least these geriatrics probably don't have to find another job. But I take that back, because given their level of intellect, they probably don't have a 401k, so they might have to go back to work. I don't know.
they might. I find it very puzzling. And this is coming from somebody whose congressperson has dyed her hair purple, is in her late 70s, early 80s, and has
Hmm.
made some absolutely horrific uh, YouTube videos trying to pretend to be young. This is
I've seen those. They're horrific.
yeah, for some
They're
reason,
cringeworthy.
the left has seemed to taken the idea that, oh, we have to do what young people do, and we have to do this online. And I think they've taken all the wrong lessons from Donald Trump. Donald Trump was a force on social media during the election. It's one of the reasons that he dominated Kamala Harris so badly. But it wasn't the fact that he was insulting people. It wasn't the fact that he was doing his, Trump dance that, took off. The point was he had actually connected with people. He went to Harlem, where candidates on both sides of the aisle have ignored them for decades. He went to churches that no candidates had ever seen before. He connected with the voters. Online was just one of the ways he did it. And I think the left took the wrong lesson from this, going, oh, well, we have to do these stupid TikTok videos like these idiots do on there to really, so they think we're one of them.
Yeah, I also think there is a underlying authenticity. It's when you're true, and you can be, I don't know, 80, I don't care. Like, you can be Trump, he's close to 80, but he had an authenticity about them. You can never fake anything usually in life. It always comes back to bite you in the ass, and especially Rosa DeLauro. Basically, yeah, and I think she's got one foot on a banana peel and the other in a mental hospital. She's one click away. She is so cringeworthy. And she had a YouTube town hall with one. No, I don't think she had any people. How do you like that? That's a fact.
Well,
None.
that's actually something that's been going on. We just saw that this week in the New Jersey gubernatorial election. The Democratic candidate for New Jersey's governor had a town hall meeting. And first of all, they had to blockade off part of the room, the ballroom that it was held in, to make the room look smaller because she could not fill the room. And then when the cameras went wide, you saw there was like 20 people there.
Yes, there's certainly an enthusiasm gap. One thing that's a gap that is closing is the anti Semitism gap, isn't it?
It is, and unfortunately, in the wrong direction. Anti Semitism is hitting new highs, and it's not limited to party. While you have the pro-Palestinian anti-Semitic protests going everywhere on the left, the RNC this week disbanded the Young Republicans chapter of New York State because of anti-Semitism. They had I believe it was a Telegram chat. It was one of the secure platforms. They had a Telegram chat where they were spouting anti-Semitic slogans. They were calling for violence, and it wasn't just members of the New York State group. There were members from all over the country. Now, fortunately, the RNC did the right thing and said, you know what? We're not standing for this. You are not associated with us. But the fact that this younger generation is becoming more and more anti Semitic is truly frightening. This is a group of people that has not learned about the Holocaust, have no idea what the Nazis were actually about, and they're actually espousing the same sort of rhetoric while calling the other side Nazis.
Yeah, I think and again, it's only a cursory examination, but what I've seen from information that I've looked at is it's similar but different. The left, it's all Palestinian, and I believe it's more influenced by nutcase education. I think on the right, it has to do. I think what kicked things off, not that it wasn't there, was the strike over the summer on the Iranian nuclear plant, because MAGA is certainly anti-involvement in foreign entanglements. Was that the sole reason? No, but I think it certainly put fuel on the fire.
I'm sure that probably was a factor, but I mean, we're not talking about people who were spouting about how we shouldn't be over there. And I mean, there's no reason for either side to equate what we did to Iran with anti-Semitism. The big problem is, I think it goes back because also on the right, it's also the younger generation. So I think it goes back to what you were saying on the left with the education system. They are taught that the Jews are oppressors, Israel is an oppressive state, they've taken land that doesn't belong to them, all of which is not true. But they have unfortunately been brainwashed by this mentality.
I concur with that, but I also believe that's 100% correct. I also believe that there's now an open license on anti-Semitism. There's no real repercussions. In fact, it might actually be in vogue. How do you like that?
Yeah, I think since October 7th, it has come out into the public. Prior to that, I'm sure these same people were just as anti-Semitic, but they kept it to themselves. Now, all of a sudden, oh, well, they're standing up for the Palestinians. It's socially acceptable to do that. And you know what? Going after any group, no matter who the group is, just because of who they are, is not acceptable. And these people need to learn that.
I'm not very optimistic, but we will see if that in fact does happen, because I think the path is getting slipperier and slipperier.
It hasn't happened in 2,000 years. I'm not holding out hope for it to happen anytime soon.
I concur with that unfortunate thought, unfortunately. You also have, and it kind of ties in, not to anti-Semitism, the economic, because the last story is economically related to some degree and political. But you have the basically the complete change, and it's happening quicker than it really has in almost any time, like the Industrial Revolution that might have taken decades to really unfold. You have a sudden shift in fact, you look at college grads, the job market sucks. And some of that a lot of it has to do with technology. Some of it is just economic uncertainty. But we could have, and socially and economically could have huge repercussions of permanently displaced young people. And you talk about anti-Semitism. I'm getting to that, but um, things like communism, things of that, can really take root when you have young, especially men, who are disenchanted and displaced. It's not a prescription for pleasantries, and you have things like AI and others, things like that. And also we've talked about this for years, the disconnect between what's being taught at higher education and what's required. So you have two things going on: disconnect with what's being taught and what's needed, maybe some social issues as well. But then there's the AI, and you mentioned when we prepared for this podcast that you look at Amazon, I believe, are laying off or not going to hire 60,000, and you have Meta laying off 600 directly due to AI.
Yeah, Meta is laying off 600. Amazon did not announce this. It was actually leaked. The New York Times covered this, that they expect to not hire 60,000 potential workers over the next 2 years as they move towards more automation in their warehouses. And in terms of technology, it is moving faster than it ever has before. And that's always the case. Every wave of technology occurs faster than the ones before it. But AI works in both ways. There are a number of very prominent, both business people and economists who have stated in the next 5 years, AI will make more millionaires than the internet did in 20 years because it's moving so fast. So what you're seeing is a split between the people who are embracing the technology and understand it, and the people who are afraid of it and don't know what to do about it. And you
or are unprepared for it. Like, let's just talk about business.
Completely
so you have people
for it.
that are getting their MBA or undergrad in marketing, but what they're being taught is the marketing of 1970. I'm being honest about that too. Maybe 1999, whatever. But it's not what anyone wants. And one other thing I'd like you to digest and basically give your opinion. There's a book called Freakonomics, and there are very interesting things. And one of them was about that your first job, things of that nature. A lot of it has to do with luck, can set the trajectory for your entire life. So why is that important? Because you have a phenomenon like AI and other factors coming in that young people might not have the time, even though they're young, or if they do, there may be a permanent disconnection between skill level and skill assessment versus opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think it's a matter of skills versus opportunity. I think it's a matter of motivation. The fact of the matter is, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of certification courses that people can take to learn all these things, many of which are free. You can go online. If for some reason you don't have internet access, you can go to the local library to take these courses, and most of them are not even that long. Google offers free certification courses. Some of them can be taken in as little as an hour and a half. So if you want to move forward, if you want to understand the technology and use it to your advantage, the opportunity is there. It's the motivation. The people who are not finding jobs and the people who are going to be most affected by AI are the folks that went to college and said, well, I was promised I would get a job, and I was promised all of this. And they think they're entitled to all of this without actually putting in any effort.
Okay, but you got to understand the backdrop. 5 years ago, that was true. I mean, you sneeze, you get a job. Okay. Um, so what I think is interesting is we've talked about this before. I think there's a huge disconnect with what because colleges have no or they had no, now that it's increasingly becoming apparent, no reason to change, especially with student loans and blah, 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 that, the same old works. Okay. That's no longer the case. And I have to say, I mean, the whole model seems to me be beyond more than antiquated. And I think it'd be a rude awakening. And here's my point is that 30 years ago, you get a degree in art history, you kind of check the box that you're a college grad, you get a job in sales, you can move up, into marketing, get an MBA, and the rest is history. Now, I mean, you kind of got hoodwinked, didn't you?
To a
There is no
certain
checking the box.
No, you can't check the box anymore. And I think that's a good thing. You actually have to put in the effort. But in terms of the job market, this is cyclical. It's not going to last forever. 5 years ago, you could, sneeze and get a job. When we were on terrestrial radio 14, 15 years ago, we were talking about the fact very often that if you lost your job and you were over 50, there was a good possibility you were never going to work again.
And that was actually true. And to that point, there was, even if you were younger, it was at that particular point, I'm talking '08, if you were out of work for like 6 months, it could be deadly.
Yes.
Like so you were in deep shit.
Absolutely. But these things are cyclical. So yes, right now the job market is bad. But we're learning that, AI can do all of these things. I mean, right now, I can go online and use AI tools that I already have to replace 3 MBAs. I can use it to replace marketing people. Now, it can't do everything a people can. And quite frankly, it never will be able to do everything that a person can, because there is something called emotional intelligence that is very crucial to communications that AI cannot master because it has no emotions. And I've heard people say, oh, we've got new models that it's going to be able to teach in emotions. No, it's still a binary operation where emotions are not binary. So that's never really going to happen. There's always going to be a need for people. Will there be a need for a lot fewer people for some of these jobs? Absolutely. But guess what? There's still a need for plumbers, a need for electricians, a need
okay, but that's my whole point, That's my whole point, Dr. Lotkin. There's no need for a marketing person, okay? Yes, is there a need? Yeah, there's 1/10 of the demand that will happen in the future. Yes, right. Plumbing, that's what, yeah. No one needs another marketing person. No one needs, another management aficionado. No, those jobs are done. And where I separate a little bit from your argument is, when you have such a fundamental shift that I think there are people that never can really get on board. It's beyond cyclical. Like if there's the '08 recession, if it's the '08 recession, guess what? A year later, that 6-month terminal person found a job. Okay. Right. But this is a situation where, and not everyone's adept at AI. That's not their inclination. I think it has huge ramifications. And like I said, about checking the box, you can blow art history and whatever, ancient Greek mythology. That is over, dude, as a degree. Unless you're a billionaire or a millionaire and you can just hang out like Muldowney. But if you actually need a job, I don't know, and I think it's actually bigger. Not going to belabor the point that it gets to what we've talked about for 5 years. Your whole theory, and I think it's coming to fruition. The buffet of skills is going to supersede the 4 year bullshit. I don't mean BS, but yeah, BS bullshit degree. I don't think it's really
Yes,
it's
if
antiquated.
if somebody is motivated to actually learn skills, they will always be able to get a job. You may have to learn new skills to get new
Mm-hmm.
jobs, but every time a new technology comes out, remember in the late 1990s, people were saying, oh, the internet is going to be the death of retail stores. They were all going to go away and everybody was going to shop online. Well, do people shop online? Absolutely. Do they still go to stores? Absolutely. It's
A lot
never,
less than they did.
but it's never
Yeah.
one or the other. And if you're motivated, now there are certain geographic areas and certain industries that this is absolutely going to devastate. And quite frankly, I would not want to be trying to figure out what's going to happen to the economy of California because AI can program just as well as Silicon Valley coders. Now there are actually AI actors which can decimate Hollywood. So California is in big trouble.
Well, I think Gavin can kind of come to the rescue
Oh,
on that
yeah,
note.
sure.
Um, so, kind of in an economic political arena, we have the shutdown, which talk about changing landscapes. It was forever that the party in charge would be blamed for the shutdown. Very interesting, at least for me, that Trump's approval has actually gone up, and the Democrats are continuing. I don't know how much further they can go down, but it ain't looking too good, is it?
No, it's not. The Democrats are taking the brunt of the blame for this, and rightly so. They they latched on to the fact that
Mm.
they want to protect health care. This
No, they
has
don't.
been
They're desperate for power.
right, but this was their big claim as to why they were shutting down the government because they wanted to protect health care. Now, if you get into their claims, it comes down to two claims. One, they want to restore the spending that the Republicans cut earlier this year. That wasn't spending that was actually benefiting anybody. That was fraud, loads of waste and fraud. They want to bring that back, but they're calling it health care. The second is that the Obamacare extension that Biden and the Democrats rammed through during COVID is now going to expire. Well, guess what? The Democrats were the ones that said it to expire. And John Thune has actually said once we get the government back open and we get everything else taken care of, we're happy to extend those benefits. So they don't have a leg to stand on, but they keep making the same claims. And as we've talked about over and over again, with the proliferation of sources of information like podcasts and blogs, and no longer just the 6 o'clock news where they can control what
Mhm.
you hear, people understand that this is bull. This is the Democrats. And this also went viral online. The fact of the matter is what the Democrats are doing right now is they have refused to accept a clean resolution. And for anybody who may have missed what that means, it means what the Republicans were trying to pass was a continuation of the exact same spending that the Democrats had already agreed to. They weren't adding anything, they weren't cutting anything. They just wanted to continue the spending to give them time to actually put the budgets together. Now, why this is backfiring on the Democrats is because video has gone viral of Barack Obama when he was president and there was a government shutdown and the Republicans did the same thing the Democrats are doing, but for a lot shorter a period of time. And Obama was railing that all they have to do is to agree to continue the same spending. And how dare they not do it? And it's making the Democrats look really bad because now they're not doing it.
Correct. And isn't it kind of more just indicative of the, and nothing's permanent, but at least the current plight of the Democratic Party? Because it actually, I heard someone was like, for young people, like being a Democrat's almost a slur, like totally not cool anymore. And back 40 years ago, yeah, you were the Democrat, the Republicans were the lame party. That is no longer true.
No, you're actually seeing major shifts in party registration. Traditionally, Republicans did tend to be much older. They trended to, more
Country
affluent,
club, yes.
white. Yes, the country club image. That's no longer the case. Young people are registering as Republicans more often. And there was actually a flood over the last 12 months of people leaving the Democratic Party and re-registering as Republicans. And I don't even think we saw that during the Reagan years.
Not in an overall sense, no. So what is your prognosis? What do you think is going to happen with the shutdown? And what do you think is, I know Fetterman is chiming in about, that he would support overturning the filibuster. I'm not so sure he's not going to flip eventually that. I don't know. That's an open-ended question. Where do you think this plays out? There was yes, you could say an urban legend, whatever you want to call it, that they were waiting for the No Kings protest. I don't think that's that's no longer valid. So where do you think this ends up? When there's too much bleeding?
Well, I think the bleeding is about to hit. And I don't think the Democrats are going to be able to handle it if it does, because we are coming up on the point, and John Fetterman also made a big issue about this because it's one of the reasons that he said he will support to blow up the filibuster if it gets the government open again, because SNAP benefits are about to run out of money. I believe October 31st is the deadline where there will not be any funds left for food stamps for the needy people that need them. And it's
how do the Democrats handle that when that's supposedly one of their major constituencies?
Exactly. That's their bread and butter. And if they keep the government shut down while SNAP benefits evaporate, they're not going to be able to even rely on their base anymore. They're going to blow that up if they do that. So
does Chucky have a future?
Honestly, I have a feeling that before Chuck Schumer comes up for re-election in 2029, he's going to announce retirement.
I agree 100% with that. It would not happen if he did not, because he loves power. That's all he's known, is being in government. Yes, I 100% agree with you that if it wasn't for AOC biting on his heels, that, yeah, he's not going to want to be especially his age, go out as a loser.
Yeah, I think he'll retire before he faces a primary.
I would agree. So when do you think this ends? Crystal ball. Right after the SNAP benefits? Mid-November? Betting markets say mid-November, by the way.
Yeah, the betting markets are saying mid-November. Polymarket has it, I believe, November 15th right now is the odds-on favorite. SNAP benefits are scheduled to end, I believe, October 31st. My guess is somewhere in the middle there. If the Democrats actually keep it closed and SNAP benefits run out, I don't know how they're going to be able to recover from that, because nobody is going to believe that the Republicans are the ones doing that. And again, take a look at all of the polling. We've seen an overwhelming number of people say, no, this is the Democrats' fault. I mean, it's not even, close. And Gallup just came out with a poll that for the first time, 60% of the country believes the federal government has too much power. And for the first time in history, more Democratic voters believe that than Republicans. So you're actually seeing more and more people saying, you know what? No, we've given the government too much power. We've got to shrink the government, which, let's face it, that's the Republican libertarian line going back decades. So I think the Democrats are going to find themselves in a lot of trouble if they don't say, okay, we will pass the CR and negotiate in good faith for all the things we want.
I concur 100%. I think they're at 13%. Wow, maybe they can make 8. Unbelievable. Well, that concludes this edition of Carnivore Bites. Our listeners can contribute to the show, can't they, in many ways?
Yes, they can. We want to hear what you have to say. Where do you come down on the shutdown, on these polls? What do you think the federal government has too much power? Let us know. You can go to the Carnivore Radio Facebook page, messages there. You can also go to xvadio.com/connect. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at the xvadio.com, the Carnivore Radio website, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. We'll see you next week.
We'll see you then.